I'm glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom. Are you ready for the word?
Yes, sir.
Hebrews chapter 4. Look at verse 12. Hebrews 4, verse 12. For the word of Yahweh is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and the intents of the heart. The first thing Hebrews 4:12 declares about this book we call the Bible is that it is what? The Word of Yahweh. These are His words. It's not just another book. It's not just a collection of some things that somebody said. This is a collection of the things that Yahweh said through holy men. Hebrews 4:12, we're also told that the Word of Yahweh is alive. Being alive, no part of it ever dies. For any part of the Bible to die and no longer be relevant, part of Yahweh would have to die. It is alive. We're also told that it's powerful. That is, it's in the fixed position of being active and at work all the time. That's what that word means when it says powerful. It is in a fixed position of being active at all times. How were the heavens created? By His Word. He spoke and His Word went out and all things were created. But after we told these wonderful things about the Bible, it's His Word, it lives, it's powerful. We're also told that the Word of Yahweh is sharper than any two-edged sword. So it's sharp, sharper than anything we've ever seen, and it pierces and divides asunder. In other words, it cuts and it cuts deep. What does it pierce and what does it divide asunder? Soul and spirit and joint and marrow. It separates our soul from our spirit and it separates our joints from our marrow. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the dividing of the soul and the spirit. Because our spirit longs for truth. It has to be separated from our soul because our soul longs for things that are pleasant, comfortable, rational. The carnal mind, we're told in Romans, the fleshly mind, is not subject to the law of Yahweh. Neither indeed can be. It cannot be subject to the law of Yahweh. It is enmity with Yahweh. It is in a position of hostility to Him. The carnal mind does not like Yahweh telling it what it can and can't do. So don't be shocked when somebody gets angry that you dare suggest to them they can't eat bacon. They think it's the most awesome thing in the world. And that carnal mind is at enmity. It's hostile toward Yahweh. And it's not, the carnal mind, until it is renewed, is not going to allow Yahweh to tell it what to do. Right. So if you're ruled by your soul will have you believing things that make you Yahweh's enemy, while at the same time convincing you that you're actually pleasing Him. Right? The carnal mind, your soul, will have you believing that you're pleasing Yahweh by disobeying what He said.
That's true.
That's the reason it's imperative that we know what's written. What is written is the only thing that can separate us from soulish beliefs. It's imperative that we put ourselves under the knife of Yahweh's Word so that it can divide our spirit from our soul and so that we can actually begin to walk in truth. So that we can actually see if what we're walking in is truth or if it's not. You can't trust your mind. You can't trust your heart. The mind that's ruled by the soul will not subject itself to the law of Yahweh. You can't trust your mind. And we're told that the heart is deceitfully wicked. We're told, see, when you start thinking about, well, this is what I feel or this is what I think. Yeah. See, that's what people will do. They want to rationalize their behavior by talking about, well, I know what I feel in my heart. Yeah. And I know what I think. We're told and warned that there is a way that seems right to a man. Right. But the end thereof is destruction. Right. Well, none of us want to be wrong. Well, there's only one way to prevent it.
Right.
It is by holding on to truth, no matter how strange it may sound to others, to our own hearts or to our own minds. We have to walk in what is written to not be wrong.
Right.
Nobody wants to be wrong, but if you're rejecting what's written, I don't care what your mind, your heart, or your pastor, or a teacher, or your grandmother said to you, if you're rejecting what's written, you're wrong.
Correct. Yes.
The soul craves things that makes it feel important, good, comfortable, normal, delighted, happy, and warm inside. But our spirit craves truth, and it will embrace it regardless of the cost if we expose it to truth. What does the soul crave? Things that makes it feel important. Things that it views as being good and comfortable and normal. Things that make it feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. But the spirit craves truth. But if you look in Hebrews 4:12 here, you will also see that it divides asunder joints and marrow. Now that's an odd thing to say.
Yes, sir.
We can understand this, the word dividing asunder soul and spirit, but joints and marrow? It's an idiom. An idiom means you've got a sentence and the meaning of the sentence is not found in the words that are used. In other words, I could say, man, yesterday it rained cats and dogs. Well, did it actually rain cats and dogs? What did I mean? Came a downpour. Rained hard. So you shouldn't be literally looking for cats or dogs. You could say to somebody, you're going to have to bite the bullet. Do we really want to bite the bullet? No. Sometimes, as a wedding day approaches, we'll ask somebody, are you getting cold feet? Or are we really concerned that they need to put on wool socks? No. Boy, you do that and you're going to end up in some hot water. See? My dad used to accuse me of being like a bull in a china shop. You've heard the phrase, don't put all your eggs in one basket. This morning I heard a guy talking about some quarterback, don't remember who he was talking about, but he said this, that boy right there is going to hit some home runs with his feet. It's an idiom. He took a baseball analogy and pulled it into football and then put it on the boy's feet instead of a bat. Just strange, but it's an idiom. And I can be more current than that. I could say, well, don't be throwing shade at me. That's an idiom, right? What joints and marrow? That's an idiom. I'm sure that those who read that understood perfectly what was meant because it was an idiom of their day that they used. But today it's an idiom that we're not familiar with. This is one of those things we like to quote. The word of Yahweh is alive and powerful, dividing asunder soul and spirit, joints and marrow. And then we go on and pretend that we know what that means. Just as surely as the soul and spirit are so closely joined together, it takes a two-edged sword of Yahweh's word to divide them. So is it true of the joints and marrow. We might get an understanding of this idiom better if we look into the definition of these words. As I said, the words don't always share with you the meaning, but the words can sometimes give you an idea of what's trying to be said. The word translated joints is the word harmos, H-A-R-M-O-S. It's the word from which we get our English word harmony. Harmos or harmony. A joining or a blending together is what this word means. It refers to how our bones are connected. Joints. There's bones, they're connected, they're all joined together. The foot bone's connected to the right ankle bone. Right? So it means a joining together. It's a reference not only to the fact they're joined together, but how they all work in harmony with one another. The word translated marrow refers to that which is closed up inside the bone or the spinal cord. It is the life-giving fluid in the bone. So, let's say it this way. The Word of Yahweh divides asunder the harmony of the bones from the very essence of the bones. I'm going to say it again. The Word of Yahweh is a sharp two-edged sword that pierces even to the dividing asunder of the harmony of the bones with the very life-giving essence of the bones. Now, think about it this way. We think muscles are important. And they are. But I don't care how many muscles you have, if you don't have some bones to which to attach those muscles, you are just a skin full of mush. If you had hardly any muscle, you can still function. If you had hardly any bones, we'd have to carry you around in a wagon. We couldn't even use a wheelchair. You'd just fall right out. We'd have to pile you in a wagon to haul you around if you had hardly any bones. It's true. Think about it. You got to have bone structure, right? But you not only need bones, you need those bones to be in harmony. If they're not in harmony, you can't even perform the simplest of tasks. Stand up. Don't get excited. I'm not dismissing you. Now I want you to stand up straight. Put your arms down beside you. Straighten your fingers out. Straighten your body out. Straighten your legs, your knees, all out as much as you can. Look straight ahead. Now let's just do some simple tasks. Look to your left. Look back straight ahead. There you go. Make a fist. Very good. Take one step forward. Take one step back. You can be seated. We do that every day, all day long. Those things are just simple to us. But in order for you to do that, the bones in your body had to work in harmony with one another. That finger couldn't be out here doing its own thing. It had to work in harmony with the rest of your hand. That's what this word translated joints means. It means the harmony of the bones working together. We cannot wave, sit, stand, walk, run, look left, look right, lift, squeeze, pinch, chew, kick, hit. We can't do any of that stuff without our bones working in harmony. However, inside of these bones is a substance called marrow. You can't see it. You can't feel it. You're not even aware that it's there. But without it, your bones are worthless. They would wither and die. The marrow inside of our bones has three major functions. I'm going to shock you here. I am not a medical professional. But I have read and understand the purpose of bone marrow. Our bone marrow produces small cells called stem cells. These stem cells will become either red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. Red blood cells flow through our body, carrying needed oxygen to all of the tissue in our body, keeping it alive. White blood cells flow through the same veins. What is its purpose? to fight infection. It finds things in our body that is not supposed to be there, and it attacks it and tells it that it has to go. That's right. It seeks to destroy it and to flush it out of our system. That's the reason you get fevers and the like. Understand? Platelets, what do platelets do?
Blood clotting.
If something attacks our body from the outside and we end up with a cut of some kind and we start bleeding, the platelets rush to that place to begin to close it up and to clot it so that all of the blood in us does not rush out. Well, all of these things, the red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets are produced by the marrow inside of our bones. The blood cells come out of the marrow into the bloodstream where they keep the body alive and healthy. Hebrews 4:12 is not talking about how the word of Yahweh actually pierces the literal joints or the marrow, the physical part of us in our body. It's an idiom, and if we consider what the bones and marrow do, I think we can see the picture that's being given to us. When we look at ourselves, all we see is what the bones can do. And so that's where we put our focus. But behind the scenes is the real life force of our body. It's the marrow that lies deep within the bone that provides the very substance of life. So let that analogy now take root in our hearts. The word of Yahweh divides the joint from the marrow. We could rephrase it this way. The word of Yahweh will divide asunder everything that we do and accomplish from the very essence of who we really are. It will divide what we do from who we are. In other words, a person can become so gratified in all of the good, great, and glorious things they're doing that they never really consider who they are on the inside. That's the reason that of the religious people of his day, Messiah said to them, "You bunch of whitewashed sepulcher. On the outside you look great, but on the inside you're full of dead men's bones." That's the reason in Mark chapter 7, or Matthew 7, we've been referring to that all through this study, but that's the reason in Matthew chapter 7 that Messiah said, "Many are going to say to me in that day, but Master, have we not prophesied in your name and cast out demons and we've done miraculous works?" They wanted to focus on all the things they did.
Right.
But Messiah pointed back at who they are, and who were they? Workers of iniquity. Breakers of Torah. All of the things they did were canceled out by who they really were.
Right.
And he said, "Depart from me, I don't know you." They refused, in Matthew 7, he says, to subject themselves to Torah. They were willing to turn the world upside down for Messiah, but they were not willing to obey all of the things that Torah said about who they should be. They could not see that their marrow was diseased. They bragged about being holy, but they actually were suffering from spiritual leukemia. Their bone marrow was being eaten up with the cancerous growth of deceit, deception, and darkness. Spiritual leukemia produces false beliefs and a faith that's based on the commandments of men. Go to Matthew 23 for a moment. Matthew 23:15. "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves." That's bold.
Yeah.
Messiah is speaking to some men here whose marrow had become cancerous. Their bones were busy. They're evangelizing the world, but they are merely in their evangelism transmitting their cancerous cells of rebellion against Yahweh to every soul they ever go out and try to reach. He said, Messiah said of them, you're making these people twofold more the child of hell than you are. So here's the lesson we can learn from this. Until you've taught somebody to submit to Torah, you haven't evangelized anybody. I don't care how many times they said a prayer or how many times you baptized them. Until you've taught them to live by Torah, they haven't been evangelized.
Right.
You have simply made hell bigger. The Word of Yahweh helps us to do a checkup. So in closing, I want us to do that. On the outside, we don't want everything to look good, but on the inside, it to be dead. We want to make sure we have healthy bone marrow. We want to make sure that the essence of our activity is coming from the life of Yahweh that's found in Torah. It's alive. So we want to make sure that the essence of our activity comes from that life. We don't want the essence of our activity to come from a diseased core that just wants to do everything in the world for Yahweh except obey Him. I'll do anything He wants me to do except keep Torah. That's a diseased bone marrow.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you some symptoms of spiritual leukemia, and as I said, this is in closing. Let me tell you some symptoms of spiritual leukemia by explaining to you how leukemia works. Leukemia is a cancer that attacks bone marrow. It causes the bone marrow to produce a large number of white blood cells. What do the white blood cells do? Attack disease. So it sounds like a good thing to have white blood cells. But the problem is these white blood cells it produces are abnormal. They don't really attack disease. Instead, they take up space that the red blood cells are supposed to have, and red blood cells are not being produced. And so the oxygen is not being carried to the body, and the tissues begin to die because there's no oxygen being carried, and there's no platelets being produced. So the life-giving cells are choked out, and the platelets that are meant to protect that life diminish and disappear. And the cells that have taken on the appearance of taking care of sickness and disease aren't really doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, the same thing has happened in the church. A cancer has attacked the marrow. A cancer came in and started putting emphasis on the commandments of men. And the appearance of that was good. It looked good. But the more of these commandments that were created, the more of these doctrines of men that were created, the more the righteous and holy commandments that bring life, the more the instruction from Torah kept getting pushed to the side. The red blood cells are no longer welcome. It's the white blood cells of men's doctrines and commandments that are flowing through the body. And the commandments of men that look like they could make a man righteous never could make a man righteous.
Right.
And so to excuse that, they just started professing, well, I am the righteousness of God. I was made that way. I don't have to live that way. I am that way. The commandments of men begin to drive men farther and farther from the life of the righteous commands of Yahweh. Soon, men became weary of all these commandments and said, well, they're not working anyway. We're still just as sinful as we used to be. So let's forget the commandments and let's just start walking in love and not judge each other anymore. Let's practice tolerance and let's practice unity. And just flooded the system with the white blood cells. But when they did, the church began to bleed profusely as wickedness poured into the body without anything or anybody to resist it. And now it's a diseased and dying body. Revelation calls it the whore of Babylon. You can know if you're a part of this diseased and dying body or if you're a part of the true body of the Messiah. You can't tell by looking at the bones. You can't tell by your activity. You have to look at the marrow. You have to look to see if the life-giving force behind everything you say and do is what's written. If you look inside and you're not being moved by what is written and living by what is written, then your bone marrow is diseased. Look in 1 John 3. We're going to read this and close. We've done this before, but it's been a while. Let's do it again. It'll be good for us. 1 John 3 verse 4. Whosoever commits sin transgresses also the law, for sin is what? Zachary actually talked to us about that while he was here. That he thinks it's a great way to begin any discussion with somebody who wants to resist keeping Torah. Just simply say to them, then what is sin? Right. Sin is what? Transgression of the law. And we know that He was manifested to take away our sins, and in Him is no sin. So if sin is the transgression of the law, we can insert that definition here. He was manifested to take away our transgressions of the law. And in Him is no transgression of the law. Yes, verse 6. Whoever abides in Him does not transgress the law. Right. Whosoever transgresses the law has not seen Him, neither known Him. That's in what people call the New Testament. Right. People that are saying the law passed away. That's a diseased bone marrow. Because it says plainly here that whosoever transgresses the law has not seen Him, neither known Him. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that does righteousness is righteous. You can't just go around professing, I am the righteousness of God. He that does righteousness is righteous, even as He is righteous. He that transgresses the law is of the devil. For the devil transgresses the law from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of Yahweh was manifested, that He might destroy the works of the devil. What are the works of the devil? Transgressing the law. The devil will try to convince you don't have to do what Yahweh said. He's changed his mind about it. Verse 9. Whosoever is born of Yahweh does not transgress the law, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot transgress the law because he is born of Yahweh. In this the children of Yahweh are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever does not righteousness is not of Yahweh, neither he that loves not his brother. So everybody talking about love, love, love. Yeah, okay. But it's in the same sentence it's saying that we are to love our brother. It says that we're to walk in the righteousness of Torah. Right. Hallelujah. It matters not how active we are if the very essence of our activity isn't a result of our desire to walk in obedience to the Father. You cannot know if your marrow is diseased or if your marrow is healthy without reading your Bible. Amen. Yahweh's given us two pictures here, and I close with this. That's my third closing, isn't it? Yahweh says, if your faith requires you to eliminate any part of the law and to follow the traditions and commandments of men, you may very well call Jesus Lord. But your religion is governed by your soul and not your spirit. Your soul will not allow you to be subject to the law of God. If there's any part of your faith that is rejecting the law of God, you've got a soulish belief system that is not rooted in truth. And that soulish faith is going to lead you down a path of destruction. Yes, sir. The second picture we see is that if your faith requires you to eliminate any part of the law and to follow instead the traditions and commandments of men, You very well may be active, and on the outside it may look like you're doing great things, but on the inside you're dying. You may be evangelizing the world and healing the sick and casting out demons, but if your faith and your religion is being fed with cancerous marrow of thinking that our traditions and our doctrines and our commandments are more important, and we can reject what Yahweh said, you've got a cancer growing inside of you, and your body will soon die from it. Yes. The only cure for either condition is the living, powerful Word of Yahweh. And we have to let it come in and divide our joint and our marrow, our soul and our spirit. Stand up. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. As His name is put upon you, so shall He bless you.